Okay, so here we are, we're gonna color. I'm gonna use crayon, I think this time. So if you're like me, I have a crayon box with 96 crayons, I think. So here's my crayon box. So what I've done is I've picked out the greens because I'm gonna do the trees first. So I've got my greens, I usually put them in the tray. And I've got my little test paper because I don't like all the greens and I don't want to use them all. So I've got my favorite greens here. So I'm going to double check. I like that green. So I'm going to begin with this green. So this is just called regular green. So when I color, I'm going to have to peel some of this because it's getting worn down. It's my favorite green, so it's running out. Okay, so I'm gonna color, it's kind of like a coloring book, but I'm not gonna just color any which way. I'm gonna actually color as if it's like the branches of the tree. So I'm gonna kind of color like this. I'm not gonna do that. Sometimes remember I said if you want to, you can outline, and you can do that if you want to outline along the lines first. I'll go ahead and do that, just for those of you who like to keep it super, super neat. I'm going to outline here my crayons. I have some good borders, and then I keep my tree contained in the area that I want my tree. But it doesn't have to be perfect. This isn't perfect. So then when I do my coloring, I'm going to kind of color how the tree would grow. It kind of grows, the branches kind of come out from the middle. So I'm going to color it like that. And if I create some texture in there, that will make it kind of fun. So I might leave a little white in there. I might come with a darker green. Find a dark green that I like. I should have pre-picked my green that I might like. Okay, here's a darker one. I might want to put some like texture in there with my darker green. I can do that. I can outline it, but I can just be creative with how I do my coloring. And I'm just going to let you kind of do that. But this way it creates just a little bit more dimension in my tree. So it's up to you how you want to do that. So these are the two greens I'm using. So I'm gonna leave this guy here. And I think that worked pretty well outlining the tree. So I'm gonna do that. Outline the green part pretty well. The crayon's not super pointed like a pencil, so you might go out a little bit. So I'm gonna kind of color in like that. Texture it how it might grow on this one. I'm gonna have to find an edge of my crayon to barely fit it in there. So, and if you have colored pencil and you'd rather use colored pencil because it's got a little bit of a smaller point and you want to be a little bit neater, you can do that as well. I kind of like doing both. The crayons, there's a lot of colors and you can mix the colors pretty well, and so you could do that if you want. Okay, so outline within my lines. This is kind of the fun part. This is the relaxing part because I already did all my thinking work. So I don't have as much thinking because I already did the thinking part. This is just I get to have fun coloring part. I think one of the things I like about coloring is I like to mix colors. And when you have a few different shades of a color, it makes it kind of fun because you can add colors. So when I color this, especially the taller trees, the bigger trees, I'm gonna leave a little bit of white along the way because I'm gonna come back with that darker crayon and kind of add some texture. Okay, so here's my darker crayon. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to put some extra jagged lines kind of coming out from the middle to make it look like branches of the tree kind of coming down here. So I've got a variation of color, which gives it a little bit more dimension when I add a little bit more of a color. So it just kind of creates a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to do that and create a little bit of shadow in there. The little trees, I don't know that it will matter so much. I'm not gonna worry about them. So, and I can fill those in more later if I want, after I do other things, so that's good. When I do, I think what I'll do next, I'll do my Purple Mountains. Remember that? For Purple Mountains Majesty. Mountains appear. I wish I had my photo library with me. I don't have it with me because it's at school. But I've shown you lots of pictures where the mountains are in the background, and believe it or not, we've actually checked the color and they actually appear purple. And they are real photographs of mountains, but they actually are purple. When you arrive at the mountains, they are not purple. The dirt is brown and the rocks are still maybe gray, but there's some purple to them only when you have distance. And I don't know how that happens, but anyway, so there's my Purple Mountains. I think I'm gonna do some green hills, and I'm gonna pick a duller green. This is a little bit of a duller green, so I'm gonna make a different shade of green to separate my hills in the background. So I'm gonna kind of just fade those out. A little bit there, a little bit here, and I'm gonna color down to about my horizon line with the hills. I might use a little bit of this green up against where the base of the mountains. I'm gonna put a little bit of this, and I'll bring it down a little bit. And then as I get into the front part, this grass here, I'm gonna make this part green like grass, but I'm gonna make it a brighter, more spring green. So I'm gonna look for, that's a good spring color. Those are kind of the same. And that one's not really bright. I think I'm just gonna go with the regular green mixed with this, and that's gonna create kind of a good color. So I like those greens. And I could use a little bit of this one too. This one's kind of dull. So I'm going to color kind of horizontally. I'm gonna use this a little bit of the duller green in the farther back part, and then I'm gonna go with the brighter green first. So I want to kind of stay within my boundaries over here. So I'm coloring with the line here, and then I'm going to start coloring a little bit. I'm going to go horizontal, and I'm going to kind of have it go in and out of that bottom line. Don't worry about your trunks. We're going to cover, we're going to do those brown a little bit later, but I'm doing this horizontal so I can kind of have the edge of this not be perfectly straight. So I'm going to color out, and I'm just going to kind of blend in and out of here and have it not be a perfect hard line against there. My pencil line is shown a little bit, but I'm going to draw straight up and down here with the lines so I can stay within my borders, and I'll fill that in maybe there and there. And once I have that filled in, I'm going to go back with this horizontal line. Okay, so I've got some light green there. I'm going to come back. I'm going to use some regular green, and I'm going to mix it. I'm not going to go as heavy as I did in my trees because I want my grass to be different than my trees. When I'm doing mixing, I don't want to color super hard with the crayon to begin with because it will get really waxy, and I won't be able to mix the colors if I go super dark and heavy with the first color. The wax will be too thick and then the other color won't show up. So I'm going to go kind of back and forth as I'm coloring. And see how I'm kind of doing a little bit of a jagged line here. And there we go. So there's my grass for now. It's kind of in and out of the areas. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and do my sky. I've picked out a couple blues that I like. I already pre-picked them out, so I'll put my greens back in the tray over here. My ones that I like using in the front and the other ones in the back. So I'm gonna start out with the basic sky blue, I think. And I think I'm gonna go horizontally. So I'm just gonna start coloring like around here. If I want to outline around the clouds, I can. I want to leave my clouds white. So I might want to do a little bit of an outline and then just, yeah, I think that works pretty well. So I'm gonna outline around my clouds. And work my way around my picture here. When I get to my other clouds, and it doesn't have to be colored in super dark. Sometimes the clouds are hazy and you have a little bit of white showing in the sky in between white and blue, so don't worry that it has to be super heavy and dark. But I think it looks pretty good when I go all in the same direction. I don't want to color this way and that way and over here like this. I'm going to kind of keep it horizontal as I go. The only time I'm going to not do it horizontal is if when I get to the borders here and I want to kind of have a clean line. I'm going to give myself a thick border, and I might do the same on the top. I'm going horizontal there, but our same style of coloring where we give good borders and then we'll go back to going the same direction so that we have a consistency or a sameness to our coloring. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get my good border here, and then good border along here. Outline a little around my clouds, almost outline there, and then once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and just, I've got my paper tilted, so you're probably seeing it sideways, but tilt your paper that you have a good angle of how you're comfortable coloring. And so there's my sky, there's my clouds. Now, I haven't done my tree trunks yet. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add some more to my sky. I've got two other blues here that I picked out, kind of purple blue. I want to make my sky, I kind of want to frame my picture a little bit, so I'm going to add some darker blue in the sky over here. Kind of the effect that when we do watercolor painting, sometimes when we mix those colors and we can have a blend from one to the other. So I'm creating a little bit of a, I don't know, like a shadow in the sky on my paper to just kind of give it an extra border, a little bit more dimension. And so I'm going to add a little bit of darkness near the top, kind of leading into my paper, but I'm not going to do it all the same because I want the darkness to kind of be on the border. So I'm just going to do a little bit of the darker blue here. I might do a little bit here around the tree, and that kind of creates a little dimension. Yeah, my tree's already colored pretty dark, so if I get on top of the tree, it's not going to hurt anything. I can do some streaks too. If I want to do some dark streaks, I can do that. So that kind of brings my eye back into the picture because it kind of gives an outside dark border. I can do the same here with the grass too. But for my road, my path, I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring my grass in a little bit more with the regular green. Here's my regular green. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of deeper green like I did with my sky on the corner here, because I thought that looked kind of cool. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more dimension. I'm gonna bring my grass in tighter on the path. So my path is a little bit smaller. Okay, I think that looks good. So I'm gonna come in here. I'm going to keep it jagged. I don't want it to be a perfectly straight line because I kind of want it to look like the grass kind of gradually disappears into the path. People are walking the path a lot, so the grass gets trampled on, and so the grass doesn't grow on the path. So here we go. So I'm doing the same thing here that I did in the sky. I've got a little bit darker here. It creates a little dimension, and it kind of gives me a good border and brings me into the picture. Remember, we want to keep bringing the person into the picture, and I talked about making our picture more interesting. Once they get into the picture, we want them to stay in our picture. So for my road, my path, I think I'm going to do, let's see, I don't need green. I'm going to pick out some grays. My grays, my blue over here. I think I'm going to do gray and maybe a brown. Got some other browns here. Kind of a bluish gray. Usually, I think this set has 2 grays. So I've got, here's the other gray. Dark gray and a light gray. I don't want to use black. I think that'll be too extreme. So here's one gray. Here's one gray. I think I'll go with the lighter gray first. This one's more of a blue gray. And then browns. Kind of a more brown. That's a darker brown. Okay, so I've got 3 browns I might use. So I'm going to go with the lighter gray. I'm going to go like this so it looks, kind of looks flat. So I'm going to go this direction, and I'm going to it'll give it a little bit of texture. And looks a little bit like it's not cement, and it's not this perfectly flat road. I might add the darker gray to kind of give it some more texture. I kind of want to add some imperfections to it so it looks like it's actually not paved. If I want to add a little brown, if I'm not sure, I might just add a little bit and kind of see what I think, how it looks. Yeah, I think that makes it look a little bit more like dirt here and there. So it kind of gives that, so it's more of a pathway instead of just a sidewalk. Okay, so, all right. I think that looks pretty good. And the only thing I haven't done is my trunk. So I'm just going to take this regular brown and I'm going to do the trunks. You could have done the trunks ahead of time, but brown will usually cover up the green if I got green on top of my trunks. And then if I want to do a little shadows kind of underneath the trees, I might take a deeper color green. And I might just kind of create a little bit of a, I might just use the same green that I had and just create a little, just some shadows a little bit underneath the trees. So if the sun's up in the top of, in the middle of the sky, I've got a little bit of deeper shadow. And I could even do gray if I wanted, but I think I'll just do the green. Here's a little bit deeper, not quite so. So I'm going to add a few colors, shades of green, just to give it more dimension. And then, okay, I'm going to stop there. You guys can do as much as you want with that, but here we are with our finished picture, and it's drawn our eye into the picture, and hopefully it'll keep us imagining what's behind that mountain over there. Maybe there's a rabbit behind that tree, and I wonder what's up over this hill, so you can kind of draw some interest and give people some imagination as to what else might be in this actual picture. Okay, thank you guys. I hope you have fun. I hope you enjoy coloring and making a path with some trees. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.